Welcome to Sheroes Unlimited Behind the Book, where we interview the authors of all the books that we love showcasing at BoomerBabesLife. And a little bit different to usual, what do? We dig a little deeper. We get to the story behind the story. I'm Jaynie Morris, founder and creator of Fun at BoomerBabesLife, and it's my absolute delight, and I'm so thrilled. I'm actually glad it's not morning for me. It's morning for her, but it's evening for me because I wouldn't have slept last night. I've been so excited waiting to speak with our very special guest. She's an author, she's a journalist, she's a screenwriter, she's a superstar of the one-woman stage show circuit. Kathy Lette, welcome.
What a lovely introduction. You left out goddess, but you know we'll go with that. Yeah.
Well, I
all
thought
women our age, if we've survived to this age, we are goddess worthy, I think.
I'm going to make sure that we put that in the promo for this. Definitely. Kathy, it's an absolute delight. Thank you so much. And it is morning for you over there. You're in London, aren't you? That's where you live.
Yes, because I was actually learning to sail with my three sisters in the Whitsundays because we're really, really good mates. And my whole motto is, adventure before dementia. So we were having this fantastic time, but we had no radio contact. This was in March. So those Japanese soldiers who came out of the jungle and they didn't know the war had ended? We got back to shore and we didn't know the war had begun. Because remember how the pandemic escalated so quickly?
Yes.
Suddenly there were, there was toilet paper shortages and queues and they were shutting borders and planes weren't flying. We were like, And when I got back to Sydney, I had to make this heart-rending choice about whether to stay in Sydney and look after my 88-year-old mum or boomerang back to Britain to take care of my autistic son. It was like, oh, God, how do you choose? But my mum, of course, made me go because she's wonderful. But it was awful saying goodbye because we couldn't even hug. We just had to do that little bit of weird elbow action.
Oh, of course.
So what was that? Oh, my light went out. That's okay. There we are. So it was really, really heartbreaking and difficult. But I did the right thing because, if we've been finding the lockdown hard, imagine how difficult it's been for people who suffer from anxiety disorder.
Exactly. So you are now you mentioned your three sisters. You are originally from Sydney.
Shire, darling, the Insular Peninsula.
Oh, right. And that is where you grew up with your three sisters and your mum and your dad. Kathy, what was it like growing up there? Because you've spent, isn't it the bulk of your life now living in London anyway? So what was it like in the early years?
Well, I'm trying to spend half the year in Australia and half the year because, of course, I'm Aussie through and through. Yes. And I love my Australian women friends. I mean, they're the best kept secret in the world. Funny, feisty, fiercely loyal, frank, all the F words, fun, fabulous. So now my kids are older. I'm trying to, spend the equal amount of time. But growing up in the Shire, as we say, well, you've probably read Pubes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a beautiful place to grow up physically. The National Park and the beach and Georges River, etc. But unfortunately, the men disproved the theory of evolution. They were evolving into apes. It would have looked more natural if they squatted on their haunches and groomed each other's back hair to knit. They were like that. They were gorgeous looking, beautiful looking guys. But unfortunately, they kept fit by doing step aerobics off their own egos. Like this, an example of how vain they were. When Bruce came, he called out his own name. Okay?
Nothing's changed.
Probably not, no. And also just an example of how sexist they were. Well, I suppose nothing's changed really, as you say, when I think about it. A man who's sexually active was a love god, a stud muffin, a spunk rat, as we say in the Shire, Romeo, Lothario, a woman with the same sexual appetites, a slut, a tart, a tramp, a mole. The guys expected you to be so virginal. They'd be like, oh, darling, am I the first man to make love to you? To which the woman replied, of course. I don't know why you men keep asking the same silly question. But, has anything changed since then, really? I don't think so. The double standards are, Olympic level. So it was a a big learning curve on feminism. Yeah, because we girls were just like a life support system to a pair of breasts, a human handbag sort of draped over the guy's arm. So, and then once I saw through all of that and wrote Puberty Blues, you know, for my girlfriends really, to give them some kind of objectivity, then I moved into the centre of Sydney, trying to find a man who wasn't married or gay, or married and gay, being Sydney, or who just didn't think monogamy was something you make dining room tables out of. And of course, that was a whole other learning curve of feminism. So, you know, every time I experience something, I then try and turn it into a book, like a manual for women coming up behind me, saying, this is what I've gleaned, and this is the comedy I've concocted from it to help you survive what I went through. So that's really my whole literary raison d'etre. You know?
And you've done that. You've done that so well. Living in London, in Australia, I know that you're very familiar with the fact with the tall poppy syndrome that we have in Australia.
Right.
And one of the things that my girlfriends and I have often talked about is it seems to be the tall poppy syndrome in Australia seems to be the women having a go at the women that are coming up through the ranks, which sort of counteracts, you know, the whole us trying to even, you know, break that glass ceiling because we don't have that support and what have you. How did you find it when you went to London initially as an Aussie girl in London? Do they have that tall poppy syndrome over there, and did you experience it?
Well, first of all, my whole feeling about women friends is that my motto in life is that women are each other's human wonder bras, uplifting, supportive, and making each other look bigger and better. But of course, there are some women out there who need to go to the vets to get their claws done. And there's no sisterly solidarity with them. But I find them in the minority, not the majority, especially in Australia. In Britain, not so much, but in Australia, definitely. But of course, we live in a patriarchy. And because men rule, some women know that, you know, they think the only way to get ahead is to be in cahoots with the people in power who are men. So they're the ones who are always constantly not just stabbing women in the back, but in the front and in the side and everywhere they can, because they're in cahoots. But when I came to England, well, first of all, many British people see Australians as a recessive gene, the kind of Irish of the Pacific. And at the time, the man I moved to England for, Jeffrey Robertson, was going out with Nigella Lawson, who was considered, you know, a goddess here. I mean, and so and he broke up with her for me, which is hilarious because I can't cook, you know, I use my smoke alarm as a timer. Gossip columns have this feel that are like, how could good-looking, gorgeous, handsome QC break up with beautiful, gorgeous, domestic goddess and the daughter of the Chancellor of the Exchequer, or loudmouth colonial nymphomaniac? And I'd be like, how dare they call me a loudmouth, please? And they were pretty vile, and a lot of the women were pretty vile too. But you find your tribe, don't you? And I have a fantastic tribe here now. But they're, funnily enough, not a lot of them are English. They're mainly Jewish, Scottish, and Irish. And I've got a kind of comedy coven. Well, some of them are English. Jo Brand is a really good friend of mine. Jennifer Saunders and Dawn French and Ruby Wax.
Yes.
American, obviously.
Yes.
Ronnie Ancona, Sandy Toksvig, who's Danish, a little Danish delight. And, you know, once you find your tribe wherever you are, you know, you're okay, aren't you? So it just took me a little while. But one thing I learned at that time, though, is you can never, no one can make you feel inferior unless you let them. I think that's what Eleanor Roosevelt said. So even though I found I'd landed right smack bang in the middle of the British literati and glitterati and clitorati, when they would put me down or be rude to me, because some of them have a condescension chromosome. You know, they've been at Oxford for so long, they've got ivy growing up the backs of their legs, and what they've graduated in is advanced condescension, especially when it comes to Australians. When they would be rude to me, I would just say, oh my God, that's a fantastic line. You know, I'm going to write that down and give it to a real bitch in my next book. So I realized very quickly, well, I learned that as a teenager, that poetic justice is the only true justice in the world. You can always impale an enemy on the end of your pen. It's great revenge. So, just strap a giant shock absorber to your brain and don't let that affect you. Don't, if you let it affect you, then you've let them win, and they've got the power over you. So yeah.
Exactly. Now, talking about your writing, you have written over, now correct me if I'm wrong, 16 books?
Yeah, I've written about 20 books altogether.
Yeah,
I'm quite old. I started young.
No. You started very young because there's only a year between us, young lady. So you start.
You look amazing.
Oh, thanks. No work.
I know, I have no work. I think men should read through my lines. It's all there.
I love, by the way, I think that's one of the lines that I love that you use, that we girls at BoomerBabesLife have been talking about, that we're going to embrace and start using that as well. It's a corker of a line there.
Yeah, well, it's true. Because also, why would you want a man who only wants you because you're silicone from tonsils to toenail? I mean, you wouldn't want a man like that, because clearly he's a dickhead.
Yeah, well, exactly. But going on some of your descriptions, which are so apt, about plastic surgery and where they take it from your bum and put it in your lips.
You're literally talking out of your ass. Yeah,
exactly. Imagine that for a guy. Anywho, moving on.
You do look fantastic, though.
Thank you. Well, so do you.
I love your vivacity and your verve and your panache.
Thanks, Kathy. Well, see, you say, I know that you've got a saying about men and women, about opposites attracting, but I think women are different because we attract the same. So
yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. Now, Kathy, I have to ask you, you were for about 3 months a writer in residence at the Savoy. Now, before I ask you a question about something that happened with your girlfriends there one night in a bar, I have to ask you, what is writer in residence at the Savoy, and how do you get that gig?
I know, right? I mean, most writers in residence programs are in prisons.
Exactly.
Okay? And when the boy rang me up and said, did I want to be their writer in residence, I was like, gee, I don't know, let me think about that. But what do you want? Am I an internal organ, a firstborn child? Of course I'll be writer in residence. So they gave me a £3,000 a night suite on the river.
Gosh.
It was supposed to be for 3 months, but I just wouldn't move out. It was like 4 months in. They had to get an SAS SWAT team to get me out of it. And I've got my own dish on the menu, Kathy Omelette. Come on, that's pretty fabulous. And I've got my own cocktail in the bar, Kathy Cassis. We put a lot of research into that.
What's in that drink, Kathy?
It's cassis, champagne, lemon juice, strawberry, and a little tiny hint of sugar, not much. Just enough.
Now, what happened in the bar one night with the girls?
Oh, well, because I've got my own table in the bar and my own table in the restaurant. Now, just to all the girls listening, all the I love the name of your thing. What do you call Boomer Babes?
BoomerBabesLife, yes.
Listen, whenever when the world comes out of lockdown, whenever you're in London, pop into the Beaufort bar at the Savoy. If I'm at my table, I'll pour some champagne down your neck. That's a promise. So we were sitting in there one night with my little comedy coven. It was Ruby Wax and Joe Brand and Sandy and Ronnie and some other great gals. We were sitting there and we'd drunk enough Kathy Cassises that when Tom Jones walked into the bar, we thought it might be funny if we threw our underpants at him.
As you do.
I'm not telling you which girl got her pants off first, but as these pants arced over the bar, I suddenly realised, they weren't like a little lacy G-string. They were huge pants. They were like the spinnaker of a yacht. And suddenly, Tom Jones is asphyxiating and can't breathe. He's like, they get the defibrillators out, bring him back round. And we'll go, And when he turned around, quite cross, we thought we were going to be in trouble, but he saw it was us, and then he just sang us "What's New Pussycat." So that was quite good. And then we gave him a Kathy Cassis, and everything was fine. Yeah, I mean, as I said, my whole thing in life is about having fun. And for women, at our age, is the first time in our life we can put ourselves first and have fun and frivolity and age disgracefully. So, you know, why not? I'm all for women swinging off a chandelier with a toy boy between their teeth as often as humanly possible.
Looking forward to coming to London to do that one time with you.
Oh, I would so love to take you out. I have a feeling our girls' nights out are going to be legendary. I think they're going to be still at dawn. We'll still be chortling and chuckling and quipping, squawking. Can't wait.
I absolutely think that they will be. With your with all of the books that you've written, and one of them was actually turned into an opera as well.
Yeah. How to Kill Your Husband and Other Handy Household Hints. It was the first opera in the history of the world where the men died and the women lived. Yes.
Yay!
I change this light round. Just let me. Now you realise this is totally live. I'm just going to move that light there. Is that better?
That's better.
There you go. Fabulous.
Yeah, it's all about the lighting, girls.
Oh, we know that, especially when we get to our age. Hey, let's just, where's that light coming from? Now, with and as you mentioned before, and absolutely, I know all of the girls at Boom, all of the girls in our global community for women over 50 at Boom Babes Life, we all use every book that you've written as our little step guides through the way.
Oh, that's so great. That's exactly why I write them.
It's
so
now,
heartfelt. Thank you.
It's the what I want to talk about, obviously, now out of all of your books is your latest little gem, HRT, Husband Replacement Therapy. Oh, look,
very subtly placed.
You have one or two copies there still. I thought they'd all sold out worldwide, Kathy.
It's like dropping my own name. It's total art form, isn't it? Yeah.
Didn't take long to get to #1 bestseller, and having read this twice, because I always think that I miss things when I read quickly, and I did read it quickly initially, is that with this book that you've written, I believe that you were writing this one directly for women over 50, because the lead character turns 50 in the beginning. We're not going to talk about what happens and gives away, although I could be bribed. It's been, I found personally, and the girls, I've got a book club at Boom Babes Life, and we've been talking about the book. We feel strongly, Kathy, that you've written this just for us, and that every character in here is already in our life. Does everybody say that to you?
Oh, isn't that good? You couldn't, that to me, hearing you say that is better than winning the Booker Prize. I mean, I'm so thrilled you said that. I mean, I always think, Jaynie, if I have any gift as a writer at all, it's putting into words what women are thinking and not necessarily saying out loud. And it's also writing down the way women talk when there's no men around. And, you know, women are so funny. Well, you know, when you go to girls like that, you have to be hospitalized from hilarity. So I just try and capture that on the page. But we're also very candid with each other. I mean, I always say that there's a difference between male and female humor. My male friends are very, very funny, but they tend to sort of always tell these set jokes. Like, you know, they're just, you know, there was like, oh, did you hear the one about the Irish homosexuals, you know, poodle or whatever? We never do that. Our humor is so cathartic. It's so confessional. It's so candid. We strip off to our emotional undies in about 3.6 seconds, and it's a psychological striptease that reveals all. You know how you'll be on a girls' night out and you'll be laughing hysterically, and then later on you're hugging and crying. We do a lot of that too, and then we start laughing again. I mean, it is therapy for us. So I just try and get that down on the page so that it resonates with other women. And of course, I have 3 sisters with whom I'm really close. And I've got so many fantastic girlfriends. In Australia, I've got a gang called the Gerts, because our home is Gert by Sea. We've been best friends since we were teenagers. So, you know, I do have a lot of female dialogue constantly coming into my ears. And I just wanted to capture some of that on the page, because I think for women, it's the first time in history we can have a second act. I think for women, life is in 2 acts. The trick is surviving the interval, which is the menopause, which is obviously so hideous. I mean, you know, you sweat more than you feel like a Gestapo trying to get a confession out of you. But once you get through that stage, I really think it's the best time of a woman's life, because for the first time ever, you can cut the psychological umbilical cord that's kept you tethered to the kitchen, you know, by your heart and your apron strings, tethered to the family hearth, shall I say. And the kids are supposed to leave home, out the door by 24 is the Australian rule. So, you know, with the rocket fuel of HRT, and also for the first time in history we're economically independent, women can have this amazing second act. And also what happens biologically to you as you get older is that after the menopause, your estrogen goes down and your testosterone comes up. So you get a little bit more feisty, a little bit more selfish, a little bit more bolshy, a little bit more like a bloke, really. And then what happens to men is the opposite. Their testosterone goes down and their estrogen comes up. So they get a little bit more weepy, a little bit more nesty. They want to stay at home and nest. And women are like, I've nested. You know, I've buttered 4 million acres of toast. I've cooked 3,000 flocks of lamb for dinner, you know. I want to go out and I want to climb Everest and go down the Amazon and, you know, I want to have a life. So that's why the majority of divorces are initiated by women in Australia now, and the peak time is when the husband retires. So unless men pull up their psychological socks and start changing and adapting with the women in their lives, they are, I'm afraid, going to be suffering husbandectomies, especially after lockdown. Because of course, during lockdown, so many women finally realised how little housework their male partners were doing. You know, it's like you couldn't have your cleaner. If you're lucky enough to have a cleaner, suddenly no. And, you know, giving a room a sweeping glance is the closest most blokes come to housework. And I honestly think after 9 weeks of lockdown or something, most women are ready to impale their partners on the end of a fork prong. I think our favourite recipe is chauvinist pig roasted slowly on the stick. And in China, divorce rates skyrocketed after lockdown, and 74% of the divorces were initiated by women. And what happens in Wuhan, you know, the world tends to follow. So I think we are going to see, after all this settles down, a huge a Zoom boom, a baby boom, a lot of bad books, I'm afraid, are being published, but also an incredible increase in divorce.
Yes.
So yes. You know, in some ways, the book couldn't be out at a better time.
Well, and you're right. COVID actually is it's a revelation of many things for many people. That's for sure. So, and you're right. Your book could not have come out at a better time, because it's almost as if with the even though COVID's not anywhere even in one part of this book, it's almost like your lead character Ruby has found out all of that through a type of lockdown as well. Kathy. By the way, is Ruby Kathy? Kathy Ruby?
Oh no, I'm much.
I was asked to ask you that question. Yeah. I've got my questions here.
Well, it's a little bit of you in every book, you know. But only your first book is your truly autobiographical book. After that, you learn to make a living out of lying. Ruby's much more. She starts off in the book much more of a doormat than I think I am. But I do. She still uses humour as a defense mechanism, which I do too. Yeah.
Amongst all of the incredible things that I found with this particular book, out of all of your books, Kathy, is that every time I felt like I was right there and I was actually knowing basically what was going to come next, I'd turn the page and bam, you've changed things. You've changed things completely and thrown me for a loop, and I've gone, holy crapperoonie, where did that come from?
I'm so glad.
Was not expecting that. And also you've helped, one of the questions that I've got down here, and I've actually earmarked it for one of the girls as well. They said to let you know that you have helped them through this fabulous book of increasing their one-liners that they have. They've actually got a Kathy Lette one-liner little notebook.
Fantastic.
And and they've asked me to say that to tell you the two that they love. So is that okay?
Yeah, I can't wait.
Okay, well, again, we're not giving anything away. You've got to read this book if you haven't got it, by the way, yet. Why not? Oh, that's right. It's a bestseller. It's sold out. Wait for the second reprint. Anywho, this one is, okay. So she says, I know you think you're God's gift, Ange, but truth is, you've passed your bore-by date. You light up a room by leaving it.
Oh, well, yeah, we all know someone like that, right?
That she absolutely loves it. And this one, which is my personal favorite as well, no matter how much you push the envelope, Ruby, you'll still just be stationary.
Well, you know what? Women are more verbally dexterous than men. Men are physically strong, but we use on average 450 more words in our daily vocabulary. So whenever I give talks in schools, I always say to girls, don't go out. You're underdressed unless you've got a couple of good one-liners tucked up your trouser leg. Because if a man is trying to put you down or is being rude to you, making you feel inferior in a group, if you can take him down with a funny line and make other people laugh at him, you completely take away his power. I call it quiplash. Give them quiplash. And just to have that ability to shoot back a zinger can get you out of a lot of situations that are a little bit tricky. So, it's a very great skill that women have, the tongue lashing. So definitely hone that. Definitely.
Well, you've definitely mastered it. This book is absolutely amazing. It's
so lovely, Jaynie. Thank you. So she's being my human wonder bra, uplifting, supportive, and making me look bigger and better, which is what I say we Aussie girls do.
And again, that's one of the reasons why we resonate at Boom Babes Life with you so much, because that is our whole thing. All we do is shine lights and celebrate each other. So
I still want to be in your gang.
Well, you are. You are officially now a Boomer Babes Life member, and we are looking forward to when everything does get lifted and you do come back down to Australia, because we definitely want to. I'm going to publicly invite you now to speak at one of our events. It will be so much fun. But I do want to say to all of our listeners and audience now, honestly, husband replacement therapy, HRT, Kathy's book starts out with the amazing character, the lead character, Ruby. She does, all I want to say is Ruby does, in the beginning of this book, what so many of us would really love to do at some point in our lives, I'm sure. And I also want to say that page by page, chapter by chapter, you will not want to put this down. Make sure you don't loan it to your girlfriends, because you'll never get the bloody thing back either. It's absolutely,
I had a lot of fun.
Brilliant. It's absolutely
I had a lot of fun
brilliant.
writing the sex scene. I love the sex scene. I mean, I can tell them a little bit about the book, can I?
Oh, okay. But I didn't know whether we could or not. Go ahead.
Well, just a tiny bit. It begins on Ruby's 50th birthday, where she's fun and funny, and all her friends and family and work colleagues are there, and everyone thinks it's going to be a great speech when she gets up. But of course, she's drunk too much, and she actually ends up telling everybody what she really thinks of them: the school mums, the yoga mums, the book club, her sisters with whom she's estranged, her mother with whom she has a terrible relationship. Then she reveals that she's just found out her husband's having an affair. And at the end of the speech, when the whole room's like this, she then also says, oh, and I found out today I've got terminal pancreatic cancer. Thank you and goodbye. So she's cast off into social Siberia. It's all a disaster. The next day, chapter 2, she wakes up and with a terrible hangover. A letter plops through the letterbox, and she opens it, and it's from her doctor saying, we are so sorry we sent you that letter by mistake. You're absolutely fine. Please forgive us. You're okay. And she's like, uh-oh. And in her drunken stupor, she booked a cruise with her two sisters so they could patch up their relationship. And so then she pretends she tells herself she's going to pretend she's got cancer just so her sisters will come on the cruise with her. But it's not till they get on the cruise that she realised she's accidentally booked them on a cougar cruise. I don't know if you know what these are, Jane. Have you heard these before?
I had never heard of them until I read the book.
True.
I
They're
didn't
real.
even know they existed.
Most of them leave from Florida. A cougar cruise is where women our age, well, our age, we pay, and the young guys, the cubs, go for free. So to take these three very different sisters and put them in this world, the carnal comedic chaos I could build around them was so much fun. And what I was leading up to is my favorite scene, the one I love the most in the book, is the scene where the 50-year-old woman has sex with the toy boy and how it all goes terribly wrong. He's so shocked that she's got pubic hair. He's never seen pubic hair before, baby marks. He's like, what are those? And she's like, well, I did grow 2 humans in my abdomen, I mean, that scene I loved writing. That gave me so much pleasure. So yeah, is that it narcissistic to say that you had fun writing a chapter? I hope not.
No, not at all.
I just wanted to write a realistic version of what that encounter is really like,
Well, I can tell you nailed it. Pardon the pun. It was just.
So
it was very. You must now. I was going to say you must, but I'll ask the question: do you laugh all the time when you're writing your books? Do you?
Not all the time. I mean, some days you think, why did I ever think this was a good idea? This is terrible. No one's going to want to read it. Oh my God, you're insane. You could retire. You could be lying, by a pool reading inferior fiction and drinking a cocktail with an umbrella in it. You crazy, crazy broad. That goes through your mind a lot. But other times you do make yourself laugh. Yes. And if you didn't, I always think if I'm not laughing, no one else is going to be. I mean, you're not laughing when you've read it 4,000 times, because I do many, many drafts. But in the beginning, yeah, I think, and you have to follow your instincts. I mean, a lot of people told me, my publishers in England didn't like the title, they didn't like the theme, they didn't like the cougar cruise, and I just ignored them because my instinct said that women, my boomer babes, would get and would laugh and it would resonate with them. So I just stuck to my instincts. And anyone out there who wants to write a book, really, the only 2 things you need an original voice, write in your own voice, and you need an original thing to say, and just go for it. And don't listen to anybody else. Just write what you want to write, and find your own creative feet in that way.
Kathy, I was going to ask you the final question that I like to ask my guests, which was, if you had an 8-year-old Kathy in front of you, what would you say? But I'm going to change it because we've already talked about your life when you were in Sydney and what have you, and I think we've got a very good picture and understanding of what you say to yourself as an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
I want to ask.
Sunblock, I would have said. Wear sunblock.
Yeah, exactly.
You could play join the dots with my freckles, and what it would read is, you should have worn sunblock, you idiot.
Yeah, exactly. Kathy, my final question then is a little change on that. To a 50-year-old Kathy, what would you say to her, given, and I'm doing this because Ruby's 50 in your book and I'm linking it into HRT, or to any 50-year-old woman who you met, what would you say to them if they've gone through everything that you've already said, through our life changes and all that sort of thing, and they're at this point, the kids have gone and what have you, and they're in that common level of, what do I do with my life now? What would you say, Kathy, to them? What advice would you give them?
I would say you're about to move into the best phase of your life. Put yourself first for once. Age disgracefully. Carpe the hell out of diem, because what the coronavirus has shown us is that you never know what's around the corner. So you need to live your best life right now. And if you can reboot your marriage and he can change along with you, fantastic, because how lovely that you've got that long-lasting love. But if you're unhappy more of the time than you're happy, then divorce. Divorce, I don't see divorce as a failure. I just see it as a change. And from marriages last so long now, from when you first get married, I mean, from honeymoon to tomb can be like 70 or 80 years. I mean, That's a long time to find one person's anecdotes interesting, right? So it's not a failure. It's just a change. And I've been married twice, and I get on really well with both my ex-husbands. And I probably get on with them better now than when I was living with them at the end. So it's hard. I mean, I'm not saying divorce is easy. It's emotionally draining and straining, and it's heartbreaking and all of that. But, you know, you only get one life, and just live it. And don't be afraid. And don't forget you've got your human wonder bras around you. You know, keep that. They will keep you buoyant. Their cups will runneth over with love for you. So whenever you're having a bad day, you know, they can whisk you off to the bar, and you can swing off that chandelier with the toy boy between your teeth. So, and don't feel guilty about it. Women feel guilty all the time. Our guilt glands throb constantly, especially when we're mothers. Don't feel guilty about it. You know, you are allowed to put yourself first just this once.
Kathy, that's awesome advice. Thank you so much. We really appreciate having you on this episode of Sheroes Unlimited, Behind the Book. Now, if you haven't been listening, this is the book. Kathy Lette's latest book is HRT, Husband Replacement Therapy. All the details on where to get it. It's on Amazon, all good bookstores. Go to Kathy's website. You'll get all of the details. Make sure you follow her on all of her socials. All of the details will be below this podcast and video as well for you. And as from right now, our June issue of the BoomerBabesLife Magazine, Kathy is our cover story. So if you want to find out a little bit more, and I know you do, you want to find out more about Kathy, then we've our editor-in-chief, Astra Dadzis, has written an excellent cover story interviewing Kathy as well. That issue is out. She is, isn't she? She loves you. She absolutely loves you.
And I just want to tell anyone watching too, is that Jaynie is in the book because she very brilliantly donated money to the bushfire fund to have her name in the book. So she is actually a character in there. So I feel that we've already bonded in the most fabulous way possible.
Oh, and well, thank you so much. And without giving anything away, the cameo that I have, I may or may not be part of Ruby's issues with her husband. But anyway, you have to read the book to find out where I fit in. Kathy is absolute delight. Thank you so much again. Thank you for continuing to always uplift, support, and celebrate women constantly, not just through your writing, but just through your life and everything that you give for others. You are an amazing woman, and we're very proud to have you on the show today, and so blessed to have you in our June issue of the BoomerBabesLife magazine as well.
We are so going to be besties. I mean, I have no doubt about that. As soon as this is over, it's you and me, cocktails, swinging off the chandelier.
With a toy boy between our teeth.
And cackling like kookaburras.
Yeah. They'll know it's us, that's for sure. Two Aussies, that's for sure. Thank you so much again. Have an absolutely beautiful rest of this day. Say hi to your beautiful family as well for us. We're very mindful of the time, but we're so blessed that you spent it with us. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Bye, Boomer Babes. Adore you all. Take good care. Take good care of each other. And I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.